Today we're going to do some kind of massive overview intro to web development. And I guess I would like to start by asking y'all what you think web development is, and then maybe we can narrow in on some stuff. But before I even start asking that question, I'm going to get my little notes app up so we could start brain dumping. Okay? All right. We're going to zoom in to a random spot here. We're going to say, what the heck is web development? I That's so weird. I typed in Devslopes but meant to type in development.
Development.
That was a brain fart. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna start asking all y'all what you think web development is, and we can just start painting this big picture, and then maybe we'll figure out where to go from there. So I'll start with Jacob. What do you think web development is?
Uh, I guess I'd say it's the backbone of like an internet. I'm not too sure to be honest. Like it's like a
Okay, we'll
backbone of
pop in the internet on there.
yeah.
Maybe that's a sub question. What is the internet? That's a little confusing, right? Cool. All right, what else we got? John, what do you think web development is?
Where'd you
You go for it, Chris. What do you think
go?
web development?
I think it's just like I feel like it's like the process of making either like a web page um or a network of pages. Like
I like it. I like it. I'm gonna throw another word in there just because,
lack of better words.
yeah, I'm gonna throw two words in there. We're gonna say website or web app. Those are the two words I'm gonna use.
Okay, yeah.
By the way, a million people will describe this a million different ways. I'm here to give you the John definition of this. I am in no way claiming that this is the absolute definition of web development according to whatever. Okay, but this is a good start. I really like this one. Um, so that's good. But I do think this was a good thing to point out. Like, what is the internet? What how does that work? Right? Anybody else want to chime in on what they think web development is? And then we can get started talking about some stuff, kind of go on a tangent.
Um,
What was that?
I think web development is creating websites for different companies and browsers. Uh, yeah.
Cool. I'm gonna throw the new buzzword you have in there. Browsers. That's a good one to talk about. Trying to think of some other buzzwords we can come up with, right? Coding is one. Maybe some languages. We'll just go over this. HTML, CSS. I'm just trying to brain dump here. CSS, JavaScript. These are probably all things that you've heard of. Front end, back end. I'm just trying to make sure we kind of cover our bases here. Any other buzzwords we could think of that you've just heard that you're like, what's that thing? Maybe we can dump into categorize it or something like that.
Maybe servers.
Servers, love it.
Yeah,
Sweet.
networking.
Awesome. Networking. Cool. Lots of good words. If there's anything else we want to throw on there, keep them coming.
Firewalls.
Firewalls. Okay, I don't shit about that. Whatever. I mean, a firewall is just blocking certain
Yeah.
I'm not a security expert, just to be 100% clear. So I feel like I'm gonna get the exact definition on this one wrong. But okay, what else we got?
Um,
All right, we'll call it at that. Sweet. What is
Yeah.
web development? All right. The John definition of what is web development? Y'all are gonna hate me for this. I say it's developing shit for the web. Shocking. That's what I say. All right. What is the web? So I'm going to use internet and web interchangeably. The internet is a network of computers. So let's imagine, and what do I mean by network? We'll talk about that in a second. But basically, a bunch of computers that are connected to each other is a completely reasonable way to think about what the internet is. In fact, you can have an internet with just 3 people and some computers, right? Like what you do not need is a worldwide internet. The internet in general is just computers that are connected to each other. So for example, if I have a computer A and I have a computer B, and I figure out a way to say hi from this computer to this computer, that is a basic form of the internet. This gets a lot more interesting, though, when you have thousands of computers, right? So now I want you to imagine, and this is where it actually kind of starts to make a little bit more sense that it is called the web, right? Let's say we have one computer and a bunch of computers connect to it. Let's say this computer has Facebook.com on it. Okay. This is a computer that probably lives in the middle of nowhere in like a warehouse in the desert in California or something like that. Let's just say that that's where this computer is. And then maybe we have a computer here, and this computer is John. And then we have a computer here, and this computer is John with an H. And this computer is, we'll even scatter these around a little bit. This computer is Dominic. This computer is Robbie. Okay. And I go to Facebook.com. I go Facebook.com. Boom. I'm on Facebook. Yay. So if I do that, I send a request to Facebook.com. And let's make this skinny so that way we can draw a bunch of them. And then Facebook.com gives me data back. First of all, this process is, I guess, networking, right? Like this happens over an HTTP request. I don't want anybody to stress about that now, but that is what happens. Okay. And then we're going to just draw this as one way for now, even though technically it happens in 2 ways. Just the reason why we're just drawing it one way is just because it's going to look more like a web. That's the main reason why. But technically, each of these lines happens 2 ways. Okay. And then other John also goes to Facebook.com. And you know what? Dominic says, fuck social media. I don't need that stuff in life. But what I do need is packages delivered to me.
Amazon Prime.
Yeah, there you go. So Dominic goes to Amazon.com. I, of course, always go to Amazon.com now that I got that developer salary and I can. And Robbie goes to both Facebook and Amazon.com. Okay. Is this starting to look a little bit like a web, like a spider web?
Yeah.
This is what the internet really is. It's computers that are connecting to each other and talking to each other. That's really all that it is. And as you go through this course, you're gonna learn how to do this part, which is talk between one computer and another computer. And as a whole, this is what computers are. That's it. Or not what computers. This is what the internet is. The internet is basically just a bunch of things that are connected to each other. Now, the way that they connect to each other is, they have addresses, kind of like a house has an address. We don't need to stress too much about that. That uses something called DNS, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Point is, it's just a bunch of computers that talk to each other. That's what web is. Okay. Any questions on this?
No, it's pretty good explanation.
Awesome. Good. Now, we heard the words server. And actually, I'm going to throw another word in there called client. So, in this case, do we see how Facebook.com is like kind of like all of these other computers sort of connect to Facebook.com to sort of ask for data? Does that kind of make sense? Like, in other words, John goes to Facebook, other John goes to Facebook, Robbie goes to Facebook. All of us are connecting to this computer, but these computers aren't really directly connecting with each other. Does that make sense? Like, in other
Oh,
words,
yeah.
these are kind of like the applications, and these are kind of like a user's computer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
This is a server. A server serves data to a bunch of people, right? This is a server, sort of. I mean, it's not 100% accurate, right? Like, for example, when you go to facebook.com, the actual page loads up here, but you pull the data from here. Does that make sense? Don't stress too much about that right now. It's just the way to think about it is when I go to facebook.com, Facebook is going to send me a document, and then I load it up here on, if this is the server, we're going to call this the client. And the whole idea of this is typically one server has many clients. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Sweet. So when I'm on my client, there is a particular thing that takes this document that the server sends me and loads it up and makes it look like a real thing I can interact with. Does anybody have an idea of the word that that is? Starts with a B. What's the thing that actually loads up the document and renders it and shows it
Browser?
on the page? Browser. The browser does that. So what'll happen is the client asks the server for a page. And for now, we're just going to say that that page is HTML, and that HTML can have JavaScript and CSS inside of it. Not 100% accurate, but we're going for that right now. That's what we're going to say. So it says, hey, give me the data for facebook.com. That's what this says. And then the server responds with,
No.
no. The server then responds with an HTML document that it sends to here. And once the client gets it, it renders that HTML using the browser. Does that make sense?
So the server will send the HTML to the user, and then the user's computer will create the page or what we see as
The
the browser.
client asks for data from the server. The server sends a document, and the client loads up the document. The browser on the client loads up that. Usually the client and the browser are kind of interchangeable. But the browser is specifically the piece of software that renders documents and stuff like that. On like this, for example, right here, this is all my browser. It's rendering this, even though the actual thing going across the wire is a bunch of text that would look ugly. If you're curious what that looks like, here, I'll just refresh the page, and you'll see if I look at my network tab, I refresh this, the actual thing that I wind up getting is a bunch of little text blocks that our browser then takes and turns into this. So to give you an idea, the actual HTML for this looks like this. But then it loads up JavaScript and does all its stuff. Don't stress too much about this right now. You're going to suck at it until you do it a bunch of times. So don't stress too much about it. But the idea is, by the way, the pairing of words is usually client and server are, I think it's networking terms. And it's used to describe the relationship between like many computers accessing one kind of thing. But then browser is more used in the context of like, well, now we're kind of in this world here, and we just want to talk about the things associated with rendering the stuff that we already got. But they are often used interchangeably, client and browser.
Okay.
What other questions we got on this? All right. So, Chris, explain to me what happens when Dominic makes a request to Amazon.com. Just give me a shitty explanation. It's okay if it's terrible.
Okay, so he's going to ask for data from the Amazon.com server,
Yep.
and then Amazon will send him an HTML,
Yep.
and then his computer will render that document
Using what?
um, using the
What?
browser.
Beautiful. Awesome. I'm gonna ask someone else too. Let's see, John. Explain to me what happens when you ask Facebook.com for some data. What happens?
Um, like you said, sends you, what was it, sends a doc or
We'll
something
say a
like
document. I'll say an HTML document usually.
HTML
Yeah,
document,
sure.
yeah.
We'll go for that. Now, by the
Um,
way, this is not 100% accurate. I'm oversimplifying this. I just want to be clear. But this is a very good day one interpretation of this. So go for it.
okay. Oh yeah, sends you an HTML document. Um, and then yeah, after that I forgot.
What takes that HTML document and turns it into something that looks pretty like this?
Um, oh, is it JavaScript or
No, not
no?
exactly. We haven't really gotten too much to JavaScript. There is a piece
Uh,
of software that does it. What's the piece of software that takes the HTML and turns it into something you could see?
is it the browser?
The
No, wait.
browser. Exactly.
Yeah, the browser.
Sweet. So I want you to just go through that whole thing again. Summarize what happens when you go to facebook.com. Give me your shitty explanation. And I always say shitty because the only explanation that I taught anyone today is a shitty explanation. But it's a good day one explanation in the sense that, before you know a bunch of stuff, this is a very good way of thinking about it. So give me a shitty explanation too.
Um, oh yeah, okay, so essentially HTML document, and then the browser puts it into something you can see, you said, or
Yep. Yep. It just takes it and we're gonna use the word renders it. Kind of like a game engine renders a game.
renders it. Okay.
The browser renders your HTML, is what we're going to say. Cool. Awesome. Jacob, I want you to give me an explanation on this too. What happens when Robbie goes to facebook.com? What is
So when Robbie puts the Facebook website into the browser, computer is requesting data from the Facebook computer, and then the Facebook computer sends
is
back.
there a special word we could throw on the Facebook computer?
Is it server?
Yeah. And what would we call Robbie?
The
Robbie's
client.
computer. Yep. Love it. Okay. So the
Um,
client asks for data from the server. The server does what?
and the server sends back an HTML document, and then it gets rendered through the browser that you're using in order for the website to display onto your screen.
Beautiful. I love it. That's awesome. Really good job. Robbie and Dominic, I don't know if either of y'all want to give it a shot, but you can if you would like to. If you would not like to, that's okay as well. So I'll give it 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Offer expired. All right. So this is the rough breakdown of the internet. Now, one thing I do want to say, the things I'm going to throw in there that weren't really that accurate is, for one, sometimes we call the thing that returns the HTML not necessarily the server. Oftentimes we'll call it a CDN if it just gives the same HTML page over and over and over again. Don't worry too much about that. The other correction I want to make is the server does not always respond with HTML. Sometimes it just responds with data. Don't stress too much about either of those things, okay? You're going to learn more about those later on. The rough idea for now is this is kind of how the internet works. Okay? Sweet. Firewalls block websites. That's my understanding of them. There's the one sentence thing. Okay, so now we got to talk about HTML, CSS, JavaScript. front end, back end. What are those things? Cool. Who wants to take a guess at where the front end lives in this drawing? Where's the front end and where's the back end?
I think front end is thing you see, like makes it like the logos and
Where would I draw it? Am I getting warmer or colder before I go this way or this way?
I would say close to the client side
Client side, love it. Where's back end go?
to
server.
the
Server
side.
side.
Server side. That's exactly right. That's all that front end, back end really means. Is that front end is all about the client and what the client does, and back end is all about the server and what the server does. And that's really it. That's the biggest thing. That makes sense.
Oh, okay.
Sweet. I think this is a really good for day one. This is about as far as we need to go. The good news is you won't have to worry about this for quite a while. Any of the server stuff. You're mainly going to be focused on the client stuff for a little while because there's a lot that goes into just taking HTML and rendering it. So, sweet. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to build something so y'all could see what it's like to build something. And maybe I could even show you, how far do I want to take this? I think I'm just going to build a little client thing. It's no server or anything like that. I'm going to keep it simple. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, by the way, I don't care how early you are in the program, learn the VS Code strategy rather than CodePen. Just ignore the CodePen stuff. If I were you, I mean, you can use CodePen for small things, but the second you want to work on a project, you always pretty much want to work on a project in VS Code, not in CodePen. So what I recommend you do is go to the in-class channel, look up VS Code in here, and then Mac beginner VS Code workflow or how to format or open a folder in VS Code. These are the good ones, okay? And I'm just going to do it right now the beginner way, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new app. And what I want y'all to help me do is decide what we're going to build today. What do we want to build?
Hmm.
What do you want to watch me build? I don't expect you.
Oh,
The goal
yeah.
of this is not for you to build something right now. No, normally I try to make it more hands-on learning, but I think if the request was like, what the heck is web development? It's easier to just watch someone kind of put something together. So,
Yeah.
all right, what
How about like a sleep tracking app?
that's a lot to do. What about
Okay.
like a little here's what we'll do.
I was gonna say like maybe like an article or blog with like a video attached to it, like something like that.
I'm gonna do something that has a little bit of JavaScript in it. I think I got an idea. So, Chris, you're the one that works in Intel, right?
Yes.
All right, we're gonna make a guessing game, okay? Where you're gonna have to guess who the bad guy is. All right, it's gonna be really stupid, okay? It's gonna be a really stupid game. All right, and we're gonna go ahead and make it from scratch, and we're gonna see if I can hammer it out in 25 minutes. So first, I'm gonna start by making a folder, and we're gonna call it, Intel City. Open up Intel City. So now I just have a little folder. All that I did was open a folder in VS Code, and in here I'm going to have an index.html. I'm going to have an app.css, and I'm going to have a app.js, and that's it. CSS, HTML, JavaScript. For now, we're just going to worry about the HTML, and in here we're just going to call it who did the bad thing. There we go. And in here, I'm just going to create a section and we're going to call it all characters. And these characters are just it's going to be a really bad game. I'm just going to call it a character. And I'm just gonna make like 10 of these. Actually, 9. Okay. And what we're gonna see is when I have this, if I click the go live, is that the go live button? No. No. I'm gonna click this go live button, and now it's gonna take this index.html and it's gonna render it at a little port on my computer. So this is my app. Okay. First, I'm gonna style it. I'm gonna make it not look like shit. Okay. So I'm gonna take this thing, I'm gonna wrap it in a header, and we're gonna call it Guess Who because that's much better. Actually, we're gonna call it
Who done
Intel. What?
it? Who done it?
Okay, who done it? There we go. And then we're gonna take this header and we're gonna style it. So what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna take this H1 and I'm gonna say its color is gonna be gray. Okay, but nothing changed on here. Why? Because I need to import my CSS. So first thing I need to do is import that CSS file. And now you see how that went gray?
Mhm.
Cool. I don't actually necessarily want it to be gray. I just wanted to make sure I could affect some kind of change. What I like to do at first is I like to take my HTML body and my root, and I like to take these and make their margin 0 pixels, padding 0 pixels. I also like to take my header and I like to make its margin 0 pixels. And now it shows up right at the top there, which means I could take my header and we're going to give this a height of 80 pixels of background color of black, which is going to make everything kind of disappear. And
Yeah.
we're going to make the color on it white. And we're going to give it a display of flex. And we're going to give it an align items center. And we're going to do the padding left of 20 pixels. And now we have a little header. Great. This is a beautiful app already. Look at that.
Nice.
Sweet. Then we need to style this stuff in here. Let's get those characters figured out. So first thing we're going to do we're going to take this whole section called the all characters section. I'm going to give it a width of 600 pixels or something like that. A height of 600 pixels. We'll see kind of what happens. And we'll give it a border of 5 pixels solid black. And now
I was going to ask you that. How do you determine how many pixels? Is it just like a plug and chug kind of guess?
Yeah, yep, you plug it in. So yeah. And then I also want to make sure I take my body and I make that thing a display of flex, flex direction of column, and a align items center. That should move everything kind of to the center,
Cool.
which means I need to take this header, make its width 100%. That should help. There we go. And should be able to do a gap of like 50 pixels. Space them apart a little bit. There we go. How's that looking so far? Not too shabby. All right, now we have to style those characters in there. So I'm going to say for each character that we have, we're going to take their width, make it like 50 pixels, height, 50 pixels, and background color, we're just going to make it black for now. Cool. Make this all characters have a display of flex, a justify content, space around. We get something that looks like this. I think that maybe we need to put a little bit more margin on these characters. Whoa. That's not what I wanted. That looks weird. Wrap. There we go. So now we've got some of these. Basically, I'm going to make these bigger. There we go. 80 by 80. My goal is to just get a 3x3. There we go. That looks pretty good.
Mm.
That was a lucky guess. I didn't calculate that in my head. But whatever. So now the goal is when I click on one of these, I won't know who did it until I click it. So we'll see how many guesses it takes, to find the bad guy. So there's going to be one bad guy here. And yeah. So we're going to get 2 pictures of Nicolas Cage. One of them is going to be good Nicolas Cage.
We should do the one where he's like attacked by bees for the bad one.
For the good
Where he
guy one.
For where he overacts.
I like Superman Nicolas Cage, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Copy image address. So maybe the good guy Nicolas Cage is going to have an image in it that has this. And the bad guy Nicolas Cage, I'm going to do the one from Renfield. And in here, hopefully if I did this right, totally works. And it looks gorgeous, doesn't it? I'm just kidding. We basically need to say that the character's image is going to have a width of 100%. That should fix that. Boom. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And we're also going to make the height 100%, which will cut it off and make it look weird, but whatever. Okay. So now we have a good guy, Nicolas Cage, a bad guy, Nicolas Cage. Now we need to do some JavaScript. There's no way around it anymore. Now, this is where we have to start thinking about how to hook things up, okay? But just to reflect before we get there, let's talk a little bit about how we got to this point, okay? So we got to this point. I would almost consider everything in the HTML. Do you notice how, like, when I do my CSS, I import my CSS into my HTML so that way I have access to it, and I make all the elements inside of my HTML, and then the CSS is kind of floating outside of the HTML, but applying changes to the HTML. Does that kind of make sense on that flow of how things are working? Nobody needs to remember everything happening here. I just want to, my goal is for you to catch the vibe more than anything else.
Yeah. So like, where did you, in the HTML, where did you put the CSS stuff?
Right here.
Oh, there it is. Oh,
Yep.
I see.
And what that does is it just imports this stuff into the file. So
Right,
the
that way you
I
can
kinda
make
like to
that
think
was not
about
one
this-
big giant thing. Is it a consolidation thing?
What do
Just
you
so you
mean?
don't like, so it doesn't
Yeah.
look like super
Yeah, just
cluttered.
cleans it up. Sort of. Yeah. There's other good reasons, but for now, that's fine. So I kind of want to start nudging you towards this mindset that, like, imagine building a website is kind of like building a house. The HTML is kind of like the skeleton for everything. Everything that you do, you're dumping into there at some point, right?
Okay.
But then the CSS is kind of like how you paint things, rearranging the furniture, stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
The JavaScript is going to be like the functionality. It's going to be like the person in the house that can move stuff around and change things. Does that make sense? It's going to be the worker in the house who could actually go and do stuff, right? And change and move stuff. That's what JavaScript is. Okay?
I see.
So now what I'm going to have to do is using JavaScript. JavaScript is a programming language. It's out of the 3 of these languages, CSS, JavaScript, HTML. The only one that we call a programming language is JavaScript. CSS is cascading style sheets. It's for styling stuff, but you can't like calculate things to the same level. You can't like do kind of anything you want with it. It's a lot more like specifically for styling stuff on a page. HTML is a markup language in the sense that the elements that you put here represent elements on the page, but it's not like you can kind of like do everything you want with it. JavaScript, on the other hand, is very much you could do all sorts of shit with JavaScript. You could ask for data from a server. You can calculate really complex things. You could do AI with it. You could do program a robot. You could do anything with it because it's just a programming language, right? So it's very, very flexible in what you can do with it. So in this case, the task that I need to do is I need to generate these boxes, but I need to make sure that there's only one bad guy, right? Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So let's play around with this. First thing I need to do is I need to I'm gonna see if I can make a like array of 9 things, and one of them is gonna be false and the other ones are gonna be true. That's it. That's all I'm gonna do. So, you know, that's all I'm gonna try and do. And I'm just gonna run this file, and it's gonna have nothing to do with this HTML until I hook it up. But for now, I am just gonna watch this file. We're gonna watch app.js. Okay. And in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off, we're going to say build array. And in here, I'm going to make random 0 through, actually, we're going to say random 1 through 9. Okay. And I think I could do this with math.random. And let's just console.log this. Okay. And I'm going to build that array. And what you're going to see is the first time I run it, I get 0.62. Second time I run it, I get 0.54. So I'm actually with math.random, I'm getting a number 0 through 1. So what I really need to do is, I think what I could do is something like this. Let's take this, multiply it by 10, and now I get like 4.2, 1, 1, 1, 6, 4, 3, 3, 3, 1. Do I ever get 9?
Oh, you just missed it.
Everything from 0 to 9. So what I actually think I need to do is make sure that maybe I only multiply this by 9. Will that work? I realize that I think I'm bad at this. Hang on a second. 1, 2. Like I actually have to think about how this works. If I get a number 0 through 1, and
Nah,
I want to make,
it won't work that way because math random only does 0 through 9, so it has to be 10. It has to be 10. Then we embrace math random by math floor, and then it'll go down to
no,
each.
I understand the math.floor, but what I'm trying to
Yeah.
figure out is I don't want to get zeros here. I just want to get
Right.
1 through 9.
What
So,
if you add 1? What if
but
you
then if
add
I
1
add
to it,
1, then I'll get 0 through 10,
and then
or
add,
1 through 10, and then I'd
right,
have off by 1 error.
right.
Right?
But what if we multiply by 9 and then add the 1? You get what I'm saying?
So you're saying math.random.
Times 10 times 9 and then add 1 to it.
Like
You
that?
get what I'm saying? So instead of doing it like that, it would be math dot random times 9, and then you put it in braces plus 1. Therefore, when you actually do it, it'll start at 1, and then we could do the floor. That's what I believe it should work as.
Appears to be working. I think you're right. Cool. So let's do this. We're going to do a math.floor here. I think you are right. Let's find out. 5, 1. Do we ever get a 10? Let's see. Hell yeah. There we go. Problem solved. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to build a new array. I'm going to do that with a for loop. We're going to say return array is this for let n equals 0, n is less than 10, n plus plus. I'm going to say if random 1 through 9 equals n, we're going to say return array dot push false, else return array dot push True. Boom. And now I need to return my return array. And I want to console.log my value here. Good job, Robbie. Okay, cool. Looks like I have one false, one false, one false. So I'm always getting like one sneaky value in there. So now the next thing I have to do is I'll probably need like a start game kind of thing. So can we finish this? I think we can finish this on time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a button here. This button is going to say start game. In here, we'll have an on click. Well, I'll figure that out. We're going to call this class equals start game button. I need to import this JavaScript, so I'm just going to do this here. I'm going to start moving a little quick, but if it seems too fast, don't stress too much about it. Just because I want to finish it, show you how it is. So first thing is, well, this should probably start off as empty. So what I'm actually going to do is get rid of all this stuff. And I want to make sure, yeah, it's still the right size. I'm going to need these images. So we're going to call this my evil pick. We'll call this our good pick. In here, we're going to get this guy. Okay. And when we start our game, which what we're going to do is we're going to set up a document.query selector start button. Is that right? Start game button. Start game button. And we are going to add an event listener. We can turn off this thing. We don't need it anymore. And we're going to say, hey, when you click this element, what are we going to do? We're going to start the game. And if I'm starting the game, this should really be up here. And we're just going to say, alert, starting. So I'm going to go here, alert, starting, cool. So now what we're going to say is, when we actually start the game, we're going to say build character card. And we're going to say this function is going to take in good is good. And we're going to say in here, my new card equals document.create element. We're going to create a div. And we're going to say new card.classlist.add character. New card.inner HTML is going to equal one of these things with an image tag in here with a source that is going to be a value that we'll figure out in a second. But we're going to say if it's good, we're going to call it the good pick. Otherwise, the bad pick. Evil pick. And here we're going to return my new card. And if all this seems way over your head, that is completely okay. So don't worry about it. What I'm going to do is we're going to call this build array. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our actually, I could probably just do this. And here we're going to say cards dot for each card. Actually, we're going to say const or redraw cards into In here, we're going to take in cards, and we're going to say all characters. And in here, we're going to say cards. Or cool. So here I'm going to need to redraw characters of my cards. And hopefully this works. Let's see if it works. Oh, yeah. That worked like a charm. But the thing is, we're going to need to hide all of these cards. They're going to need to be hidden. So you're not going to know which is which. Okay?
Okay.
So let's just assume we take one of these. I'm going to refresh them. It also looked like I drew too many. Less than 10. Oh, because I started at 0. I want to go 1. So that should be great. Okay, cool. And just so we can see, we are getting like random. Looks like it's doing a good job. So that's fun. So then what we're going to do is we are going to say all of these cards are going to be hidden at first. So I'm going to say for each of these cards, we're going to add a hide is going to be, oh wait, whoops. It's not what I want. I want a build card. Is good, hidden. And here we're going to say that if hidden, new card dot class list dot add hide. And if I do this, for each pool, return. So now I should get all these with the hide class on it. And what I should be able to do is say, all right, anything hidden is going to have a background color. Actually, the right way to do this is with an after prop. Hide after. Is this right? Let's see if I mess this up. Is it 2 colons? No, I'm making a mistake there. Whatever, we're just gonna add a little thing on here. We're gonna call this character is gonna be let's take a look at this. I have a bug. It looks like I'm not building that hide panel. So maybe I didn't save this file. Oh. There we go. The only problem is I need to take this thing and go top 0, left 0. Do I need pixels in there? There we go. So now they're all hidden. And if I get rid of hide, then it should show it. Did it? Yes. So now the idea is when I click one of these, I just need to toggle that. Okay. And let's see how we're doing on time. Well, I think this is all I have time for today. I actually have a lot of grading to do, but I think you get where this is going. I think if I had another 20 minutes, this would be done. Any questions? I'd rather take the time for questions. I really would have probably almost been done with it. For the truth is that it's way over most of y'all's head anyways, other than Robbie for sure. And I think Dominic too. I think you're later on in the course. But anyone have questions on like, was that interesting? Was that helpful?
That was
Yeah.
interesting. I think it's cool that your ability to build that whole thing is pretty sweet.
Yep.